My name is Andrea. I'm 28 years old. If you had met me 5 years ago, you'd never believe the woman I've become. I grew up learning to survive on scraps of food, of affection, of safety. My parents were the kind of people who treated responsibilities like debts they didn't owe. They drifted between jobs, always looking for shortcuts, always chasing their next fix. When I was 16, I realized no one was coming to save me, so I started saving myself. I worked nights at a grocery store, slept through morning classes, and promised that someday my life would look nothing like theirs. Then I met Michael. It was my second week at a new job, a marketing firm that felt far too polished for a girl who'd only ever owned one pair of decent heels. Michael was one of the senior associates. Everyone liked him confident, but not arrogant, the kind of man who held the door open even when no one was watching. He noticed me one morning struggling with a pile of reports and quietly helped me carry them to the meeting room. When I thanked him, he just smiled and said, "We all start somewhere." From that day, he became a steady rhythm in my life. A small kindness here, a shared lunch there. He never made me feel lesser for my background. In fact, he seemed fascinated by it. "You've built yourself from scratch," he once said softly. "That's rare." At first, I thought his kindness came from pity, but pity fades. Michael's care never did. I still remember the day he noticed two tiny holes in my blouse during a presentation. He didn't embarrass me. Instead, he left work early, came back with a new shirt, and whispered, "You deserve better than to hide behind worn fabric." No one had ever said something like that to me. When it rained, he'd drive an hour out of his way to pick me up, just so I wouldn't walk through mud and puddles to catch the bus. He brought me lunch when he noticed I skipped meals. He remembered how I took my coffee, how I fidgeted when anxious, how I liked silence more than small talk. It didn't take long for friendship to turn into love. I thought I had finally found my forever until I met his family. Michael came from a world so far above mine, it might as well have been a different planet. His parents owned real estate across the city. They had private memberships, summer homes, and a habit of reminding everyone how hard they worked for it. He warned me before introducing me. "They can be a little cold. Just don't take it personally." I remember that evening vividly. I wore my best blue dress, the only one that made me feel like I belonged in a room full of expensive people. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. When we arrived at the Harrington estate, the marble floors gleamed like mirrors. His mother, Margaret, stood at the top of the stairs, elegant and sharp, a glass of wine in hand. She didn't come down to greet us. She simply looked at me, smiled thinly, and said, "So this is the girl." Her tone turned the word girl into an insult. His father, Richard, was kinder. He shook my hand warmly, his grip gentle. "Welcome, Andrea. Make yourself at home." For a moment, I believed him, until I noticed his wife's icy glare behind him. And then there was Kayla Michael's sister, pretty in a curated way. Her gaze swept over me from head to toe, pausing on my shoes before she smirked. "Cute dress," she said. "Vintage?" "It's new," I replied, forcing a smile. "Oh, must have been on sale," she murmured, turning away. Dinner was worse. Margaret ignored half my sentences. Kayla talked about Michael's ex-girlfriends as though they were family. She even showed him photos of one in a bikini, saying, "She looks amazing these days. You sure you're over her?" Richard cleared his throat, trying to change the subject, but Margaret snapped, "Oh, stop pretending. It's just harmless fun." Michael's hand found mine under the table, his thumb tracing circles, silent apology. I tried to be gracious. I complimented the decor, her cooking the paintings. "You have an eye for art, Mrs. Harrington." She scoffed. "People who work in offices rarely understand art, dear. But thank you for trying." Each word felt like a slap wrapped in a smile. After dinner, Michael pulled me aside. "I'm sorry. They can be difficult. Kayla's just protective, that's all." "Protective," I whispered. "She called your ex the one that got away, while I was sitting right there." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She's always been possessive. She thinks no one's good enough for me." Upstairs, he showed me his old room, a museum of childhood trophies and photographs. "This used to be my safe place," he said softly. "Now it just feels like a memory someone else owns." I touched his arm. "Then maybe it's time you build a new one with me." He smiled, and for that moment, it felt like the world outside the room didn't exist. As we left that night, Richard walked us to the door. He paused before shaking my hand again. "You're polite. That's rare in this house. Don't lose that no matter what." His eyes lingered on his wife's silhouette behind us, frozen in the doorway. Kayla followed us to the car, wrapping her fur shawl tighter. "You seem nice," she said, voice sugar-coated. "But a word of advice." "Sure." She leaned in her perfume, suffocatingly sweet. "Once you have him, you'll understand what it costs to keep him." I laughed politely, pretending not to care. But as we drove away, I caught my reflection in the car window. My smile looked steady, but my hands were trembling in my lap. Something inside me whispered, "You've walked into a house that feeds on control." And though I didn't know it then, that dinner was only the beginning. It didn't happen all at once. Hatred rarely does. It starts as small invisible threads, snide comments, polite insults, disapproving glances, until one day you realize you're tied up in them, unable to breathe. After that first dinner, I tried to win them over. I told myself they just needed time to see who I really was. I learned Margaret's favorite flowers, brought homemade desserts, and even offered to help with family gatherings. None of it mattered. To them, I wasn't a person, I was a threat. The first real test came on my birthday. Michael had planned something beautiful, a long drive to the coast, a picnic at sunset. I remember waking up giddy hair still damp from the shower when his phone buzzed. He frowned. "It's Kayla. She says it's an emergency." I told him to go. Of course I did. Families come first, right? But hours later, when he returned, his face was pale with anger. "She lied," he said flatly. "There was no emergency. She just wanted me there because she was bored. And when I told her I couldn't stay because it's your birthday," she laughed. "What did she say?" He hesitated. "She said, 'At least now she had an excuse to ruin your perfect day.'" That was the moment I realized Kayla didn't just dislike me. She despised me, and she enjoyed it. Her messages grew worse, texts filled with venom accusing me of turning Michael against his own family. "You'll never be one of us. You're poisoning him. You're a gold digger in a nice dress." I showed them all to Michael. He was furious, but his anger always burned out before it reached his family. "She's my sister," he'd say. "She'll calm down eventually." But she never did. When her wedding came around, she refused to invite me. "Michael can come alone," she said. "It'll be fun, like old times." He refused, bless him. But when the invitation finally arrived after her mother's pressure, I knew I was being tolerated, not welcomed. I wore a long blush pink gown, modest yet elegant. Michael said I looked beautiful. At the wedding, his father Richard complimented me too. "You have grace, Andrea. Don't let them take that from you." His words stayed with me. Kayla, however, made sure everyone noticed me, then twisted it against me. During the reception, she pulled me aside, eyes sharp with fury. "You ruined my wedding," she hissed. "You think you can outshine me? This is my day." I blinked, stunned. "Kayla, everyone's wearing formal dresses. I don't act innocent. You love the attention, don't you? You'll learn that this family doesn't forgive people who steal the spotlight." Michael tried to defend me, but that only made her angrier. By the time we got home, she had blocked my number, and Margaret stopped acknowledging my texts altogether. For a while, I still tried. Sunday dinners, holiday cards, smiles that went nowhere. But each time the rejection dug deeper. Margaret's eyes always wandered to my clothes cheap, my accent unrefined, my silence sullen, and Kayla. She evolved from cruel to creative. Once she posted a photo of her family at a brunch with the caption, "Real class can't be bought." It didn't take a genius to know who that was aimed at. By our 4th year together, I broke. One night, after another call from Margaret accusing me of isolating Michael, I threw my phone on the couch and said, "I'm done." "Done?" Michael asked quietly. "I'm done trying to make them love me." My voice shook. "It's killing me, Michael. Every time I visit, I come back smaller." To my surprise, he didn't argue. He just wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "Then we stop. No more dinners. No more calls." For the first time in years, I slept peacefully. I stopped responding to their texts. I skipped every family event. Slowly, my smile returned. My world became quieter, lighter, just us two against everyone else. Then, one cold December evening, Michael came home, trembling with nervous excitement. "I can't wait any longer," he said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. His hands were shaking. "Andrea, will you marry me?" It was the simplest proposal, just us, snow falling. Outside the window, the smell of burnt cocoa on the stove, but it was perfect. I said yes, without a second thought. For a few months, it felt like life was finally fair. Richard congratulated us sincerely. Even Margaret, when Michael called her on speaker, forced a brittle "Congratulations, dear." Kayla's reaction, though, was explosive. She called Michael that night screaming, "You're making a mistake. At least get a prenup. Do you even know what she's capable of?" I overheard every word from the kitchen, my chest tight. When Michael hung up, I told him softly, "If that's what it takes for peace, I'll sign it." He stared at me like I'd just handed him the world. "No, never. I trust you completely." That night I cried not because of Kayla's cruelty, but because for the first time I felt seen, loved, safe. I didn't know that safety was an illusion. A week later I got a message from an unknown number. It was Kayla. No insults this time, just one line. "One day I'll have what you have." I showed it to Michael. He sighed, said she was being dramatic. But her words burrowed under my skin like a splinter I couldn't remove. The day after our wedding, Margaret refused to attend. She sent flowers instead, lilies the kind used at funerals. The note read, "May this union rest in peace." Even Richard couldn't defend that one. Still, I chose to focus on Michael. He was my home, I told myself, my family. We had survived their hate together, or so I thought. One evening, a few months later, Michael returned from dinner at his parents' house. He looked pale, distant. I asked if everything was all right. He hesitated, then said they were just asking questions about when we'll start a family. Something in his tone made me pause. It wasn't curiosity, it was pressure, like he'd been told what to say. I reached for his hand. "And what did you tell them?" He smiled faintly, but his eyes didn't match. Soon he whispered, "For the first time since our wedding, I felt the air between us shift a crack I couldn't name yet. But deep down, something told me this family wasn't done with me. They were just getting started." When I first saw the 2 pink lines on that tiny plastic stick, I cried, not from fear, from relief. For once the universe was giving me something pure, something that no one else could twist. Twins. 2 lives growing inside me, 2 tiny heartbeats that would finally make this world feel like home. Michael lifted me off the ground when I told him, spinning me around like a man who'd just won the lottery. "Andrea, we did it," he said breathlessly. "We're going to be parents." In that moment, all the hurt, all the years of fighting for a place in his world melted away. I believed that this, our family, would heal everything. I was wrong. Michael insisted on hosting a family dinner to announce the news. I wanted to keep it small, intimate, but he said they deserved to hear it from us together. Maybe this will finally bring everyone closer. I wanted to believe him, so I agreed. The dinner was held at his parents' house, that same suffocating mansion where I'd once been served judgment with dessert. Margaret greeted us with her usual glass of wine, Kayla with her fake smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You look radiant," Kayla said sweetly. "Gained a little weight, though." I laughed it off. I'd learned long ago that silence hurt them more than words ever could. When Michael stood to speak, the room fell silent. "We wanted you all here because Andrea and I have some news." He turned to me, his smile soft, proud. "We're having twins." Gasps, cheers, applause. For a brief second, I thought I saw genuine joy, even from Margaret. But then my eyes met Kayla's. Her face drained of color. Her lips trembled, eyes wide with something that looked like grief and rage. She clutched her chest and let out a soft, broken sob before bolting from the room. The clinking of glasses stopped. Everyone froze. Margaret rushed after her heels, echoing across the marble floor. The rest of us sat there in stunned silence. Half an hour later, Kayla locked herself in the upstairs bathroom. We could hear muffled crying through the door. "Kayla, please," Michael begged. "Open the door." Finally, she did. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks, voice shaking. "You should have told me first," she whispered, glaring at me. "You know what I've been through." My stomach turned. I had heard about her infertility before the endless treatments, the quiet sobbing Michael once mentioned in passing. I pitied her. But now her pain was weaponized. "Kayla," I said softly. "I never meant—" "Don't," she snapped. "You don't get to talk about meaning when you've taken everything I ever wanted." She pushed past me and stormed out of the house. Margaret followed her, shooting me a look that could cut glass. "You could have shown some sensitivity," she hissed. I stood, frozen, tears welling up. Michael put an arm around me. "It's not your fault," he said. But that night when he kissed me goodnight, I felt him hesitate, like a part of him agreed with them. The following week, Margaret called. Her tone was sugar-sweet. "Andrea, dear Kayla's been going through so much. She told me she feels guilty for how she behaved. She wants to make amends. She'd like to throw you a baby shower." I almost dropped the phone. A baby shower. After that scene. Yes, she said brightly. She wants to be supportive. We all do. Michael was thrilled. See, they're finally accepting you. I wanted to believe him, but something about it felt wrong, too sudden, too polished. Still, Kayla began calling me every few days. Her tone had changed soft kind, overly interested. How are you feeling, Andrea? Are you eating enough? Have you picked baby names yet? Do you think you'll handle twins alone, or will you need help? Every question felt like a thread wrapping around me. Margaret, too, began to play the doting mother-in-law. She sent flowers, gifts, expensive maternity dresses I never asked for, every card signed, "For our strong mama bear." At first I thought maybe, just maybe the baby had thawed their hearts. But the timing of their calls was too precise, always after Michael's visits, almost like they were checking if I said the right things. And then there were the comments. "You must be exhausted carrying two," Margaret said once. "Some women can barely handle one." Or Kayla's whisper over lunch. "If one baby's stronger, you should focus your love there. It's only natural." The words lingered in the air like poison. At night, I started having nightmares, vivid ones. I'd give birth in a white hospital room holding two babies. But when I blinked, one was gone, replaced by Kayla smiling from the corner, cradling it in her arms. "Don't worry," she'd whisper. "You still have one." I'd wake up drenched in sweat, clutching my stomach, whispering their names, Jackson and Vinny, like a spell to keep them safe. Michael said I was overworked hormonal. He kissed my forehead, promised everything was fine, but something in his voice changed. He started taking late-night calls on the balcony. When I asked who it was, he'd smile faintly and say, "Just work." Except it wasn't. One night, half asleep, I heard him on the phone. "Mom, please," he whispered harshly. "I told you I'll talk to her when the time's right." My chest tightened. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The silence that followed was heavy like a secret pressed against my ribs. The baby shower came soon after. Kayla spared no expense. White roses, pastel balloons, perfect music. It looked like something out of a magazine. Everyone smiled. Everyone pretended. Kayla glowed as she gave a toast. "To my beautiful sister-in-law," she said, holding her glass high. "May motherhood bring her everything she deserves." The guests clapped, and I smiled politely, though something about her tone made my stomach twist. Halfway through, I excused myself to the bathroom. As I walked down the hall, I heard voices low, urgent. Michael's and Margaret's. At first, I thought it was just family chatter. Then I caught the words that made my blood run cold. "You promised Kayla would have one?" Margaret hissed. "Mom, please keep your voice down," Michael replied. "You can't back out now. Her birthday's in 2 months. You know what this means to her." "I'm trying to find the right time to tell Andrea," he said, his voice tight. "Then do it soon. Once those babies are born, she'll never agree." The hallway spun. My breath caught in my throat. My own husband, my Michael, was talking about giving one of our twins to his sister, like they were party favors, like they weren't human. I pressed a hand to my stomach, trembling. The babies kicked, as if they knew. I waited until the voices faded, then slipped back into the bathroom and locked the door. My reflection in the mirror didn't look like me, pale, hollow-eyed, almost unrecognizable. My husband's voice, my mother-in-law's words, the laughter from the party outside, all blurred together. That was the moment I knew the truth. Their kindness, their gifts, their sudden affection, it was all part of the plan. They didn't want me. They wanted them. My twins, my heart, my reason for breathing. And I promised myself quietly, fiercely, with tears streaming down my face, they would never have them. I stayed in that locked bathroom for what felt like an eternity. The sound of laughter from the party outside turning faint, distorted, like it belonged to another world entirely. My pulse was hammering in my ears. I pressed my hands over my belly, whispering to the twins as if they could understand me. "It's okay. I'm here. I won't let them touch you. I swear it." When I finally emerged, I made sure my face looked calm. I smiled, thanked the guests, hugged Kayla for the photos. No one could tell that every breath I took felt like glass slicing through my lungs. Michael's arm circled my waist the entire time, his hand warm and heavy. I wanted to recoil from his touch. After the guests left, I sat in the car beside him, staring out the window as he drove home, humming softly to himself. I studied his profile, the man who once felt like safety, now a stranger in the same skin. "You promised Kayla would have one." The words looped through my head until they didn't sound human anymore. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake pretending to be drowsy while Michael typed quietly beside me. When he finally drifted off, I reached for his phone on the nightstand. Locked. Fingerprint. He'd never used that before. The next morning, I started to plan. First, I needed to be careful. I couldn't just run. I was 8 months pregnant with twins. Any sudden move could put them in danger. So I played my part, the sweet, trusting wife. I made breakfast. I laughed at his jokes. I even kissed him goodbye before he left for work. Then I called Nora. Nora had been my best friend since college, the kind of woman who didn't flinch when life got ugly. When I told her everything in a shaking voice, she didn't ask for proof. She just said, "We'll get you out, quietly, before the birth." That evening, I started packing little by little. Clothes first, documents next, birth certificate insurance. My savings account details all slipped into a folder labeled old paperwork that I hid inside a drawer. Every day, Michael grew more attentive, almost suffocatingly so. He brought me flowers, drew baths, rubbed my swollen feet. To anyone else, it would look like love. To me, it looked like guilt wearing a smile. "Are you okay?" he'd ask softly. "You've been quiet lately." "I'm just tired," I'd whisper. "The babies are heavy," he'd chuckle. "They'll be worth it." Sometimes I caught him staring at my stomach with an expression I couldn't name. Not tenderness, not pride. Something else. Something calculating. One afternoon, I overheard him on the phone again, his tone low tense. "Mom, please stop calling her your baby. It's not helping." A pause. "Yes, I know what I said. I'll figure it out." He didn't see me standing in the hallway, one hand gripping the door frame to stay upright. That night, I began recording him. It wasn't difficult. I kept my phone and my robe pocket voice recorder running, pretending to be folding baby clothes as he talked. I asked innocent questions, let him ramble. When he slipped up, when he muttered that Kayla just wants to feel like a mother too, I felt my chest tighten. That was enough. I had proof. The next few days blurred into a nightmare of pretending. I practiced breathing exercises to calm my racing heart whenever he entered the room. He'd kneel beside me, hands on my belly, murmuring, "They'll have so much love around them, you'll see." They, not we, not us. I heard it every time. Meanwhile, Nora prepared everything a spare room, transportation, emergency contacts. "The moment you say the word, I'll come get you," she told me. It was the 7th night after the baby shower when I knew I couldn't wait any longer. Michael came home early. His expression was off, restless, anxious. "We need to talk," he said, his voice tight. I sat on the couch, heart pounding so hard, I was afraid he could hear it. "What's wrong?" I asked. He hesitated. His eyes flickered to my stomach, then away. "Mom's worried about Kayla. You know how much she struggled. She thinks what." My tone cut sharper than I intended. He swallowed hard. "She thinks maybe it would be good for everyone if Kayla could raise one of the babies." The world tilted. I stared at him, unblinking, the air between us thick as smoke. "Our babies," I whispered. "Andrea, listen," he said quickly. "It's not like that. It would still be family. You'd see them all the time." I laughed, a sound so hollow it scared even me. "You're out of your mind. Please," he begged, reaching for my hands. "Kayla's breaking apart. Mom says it's the only way to save her. She even promised to set up a trust fund, help us financially." "So you already agreed?" His silence was the answer. I stood up slowly. "You made this decision without me. About my children. Andrea, no. Don't touch me." For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, not because of me, but because he realized I knew. "I just need time to think," I said coldly. "Please, go to your mother's tonight. I need to rest." He hesitated, then nodded like he believed he'd won some small victory. "Okay. Tomorrow we'll talk more calmly." "Tomorrow," I echoed. The moment the door closed behind him, I fell to my knees and sobbed, but only for a minute. Then I wiped my tears and got up. There was no tomorrow for us anymore. I called Nora. It's time. She arrived before dawn with her small car headlights off engine idling in the driveway. I moved slowly, clutching my stomach, every step a mix of terror and relief. Before I left, I looked around the house, one last time the nursery Michael had painted the photos on the walls, the ring gleaming on my finger. Then I whispered to the twins, "We're going somewhere safe now." I picked up the folder with the recording inside, tucked it into my bag, and stepped into the cool night air. As Nora helped me into the car, a light flicked on upstairs. Michael's shadow moved across the window. My breath caught. "Go," I whispered. Nora pressed the pedal, and the house disappeared in the rearview mirror. That night, as we crossed the city limits, the first light of dawn broke across the sky, pale and uncertain, just like me. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. I didn't look back as Nora's car carried me farther from that house, from that man, from the life I once thought was mine. The night air was cold, sharp against my face, but it felt like freedom. For the first time in months, I could breathe. Every bump in the road made my heart race, not from fear anymore, but from the quiet thrill of survival. By sunrise, we reached Nora's apartment, small, cluttered, safe. She helped me inside, settling me onto her couch, her voice steady and gentle. "You're safe now," she said. I broke down then, sobbing into her shoulder, words tumbling out in pieces, the conversation, the plan, Michael's betrayal. She didn't interrupt, didn't tell me I was overreacting. She just held me the way family is supposed to. That day I contacted a lawyer. His name was Mr. Lane, a calm, serious man who listened without judgment. When I handed him the recording, his eyebrows lifted slightly. "This," he said, "is enough." He filed the paperwork for divorce immediately, and within days, I had temporary protection orders in place. Margaret and Kayla were not allowed near me. Michael was served notice at his office. I didn't answer his calls, though my phone buzzed constantly, his name lighting up again and again like an alarm I couldn't silence. Then came the birth. It was early morning when the contractions hit. The hospital lights were harsh, the air sterile and cold. But when I finally heard the first cries of my babies, Jackson and Vinny, the entire world went silent. I remember whispering their names through tears, promising them they would never be pawns in anyone's twisted game. Holding them, I felt something stronger than fear, purpose. 2 days later, Michael showed up at the hospital. I'll never forget the look in his eyes when he saw me holding both twins. He looked like a ghost, pale and shaking. "Andrea," he breathed. "Please, I can explain." I didn't move. "Explain what?" "How you plan to give my child away like a birthday present." His voice cracked. "I didn't mean to. Mom just kept, she said Kayla might—" "Stop." My voice was sharp, steady. "You had a choice. You chose silence. You chose them." Tears filled his eyes. I was scared. They kept pressuring me. "I thought if I agreed I could protect you from worse." I laughed bitterly. "By sacrificing one of your children, that's your idea of protection." He reached out, but I turned away. "Please, Andrea, I love you. I love them. I made a mistake." "No," I said quietly. "You made a decision." Security escorted him out after that. I sat there rocking my babies, the sound of his protests fading down the hallway. In the weeks that followed, his family's chaos spilled into public. Margaret called my lawyer, screaming that I was holding her grandchildren hostage. Kayla sent emails begging, pleading, even threatening. "You don't understand," she wrote once. "I can't live without a baby. You're being cruel. I blocked them all." The court hearings were brutal but necessary. My lawyer presented the recording, Michael's voice, agreeing to give one to Kayla. The judge's face hardened. Michael couldn't even look at me. When Margaret tried to interrupt, insisting it was all a misunderstanding, she was warned for contempt. In the end, I got full custody. Michael got visitation rights only under supervised conditions. He tried to apologize afterward, cornering me outside the courthouse. His voice trembled. I was weak. They made me feel like I owed them everything. I thought I could fix it before it got that far. "You can't fix something by destroying it first," I said quietly. "You wanted to save them from pain, and all you did was give it to me." His eyes filled with tears. "I'll regret this for the rest of my life." "Good," I whispered. "You should." Margaret and Kayla caused one final scene before being escorted out of the building, screaming about family loyalty and stolen bloodlines. I didn't respond. Watching them dragged away by security felt like closing a door I'd left open too long. In the months that followed, I built a new rhythm. Sleepless nights, quiet mornings, lullabies, sung to the soft weight of two tiny bodies against my chest. Nora was there every step of the way, feeding them, when I couldn't keep my eyes open, laughing when I cried from exhaustion. "I'm not strong," I told her once. She smiled. "No, you're just finally free." Michael still sends letters sometimes. He says he's in therapy, that he wants to be a better father. I don't answer. Maybe one day, when the boys are old enough to understand, I'll let them decide if they want to meet him. But not now. Not while they still sleep with their tiny hands wrapped around my fingers, safe and unbroken. Last week, I made a decision. I'm leaving this city. Too many memories here. Too many ghosts in the walls. I found a small house 3 hours away near the sea. The air smells like salt and quiet beginnings. Nora's helping me pack. Tonight, after putting Jackson and Vinny to sleep, I sat by the window with a pen and a piece of paper. I don't know why I started writing. It wasn't for him, really. Maybe for closure. Dear Michael, you said you wanted to build a family. I did too. But families aren't built from bargains. You let them turn love into currency. You traded trust for peace. And in the end, you lost both. I hope one day you understand what it means to protect someone, not by keeping them quiet, but by standing up even when it hurts. The twins will grow up knowing love, not fear. They'll never learn to beg for approval or to confuse control for care. You could have been their hero, but you weren't. Andrea. I folded the letter and slipped it into the drawer with the rest of the paperwork unsent, like the memories I refuse to relive. Tomorrow I'll drive away before dawn, just like the night I left him. Jackson and Vinny will be asleep in the back seat, the sun breaking through the horizon as we cross the bridge out of this city. I don't know where life will take us, but I know this much. I left behind their mansion, their money, their lies, but I carried everything that mattered in my arms.